Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, sometimes this business is just a family affair, and you know what? If you're within the sound of my voice, guess what? That means you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And, you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because you're listening right now. And if you are listening, keep listening. And subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Gives you a 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over our In the Seats YouTube channel. So you can give us a like and subscribe there as well. God knows we would appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on the social media, as the kids call it. The Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok, the Threads, the Tumblr, the God knows what else I'm forgetting, but we're at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we live to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it that much more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that kindness and come on down and pay us a visit. On this very special episode, we're diving into a film that is burning up the charts on VOD and limited theatrical run now. It was a family affair, but it's a real tightly wound, fantastic little thriller. And it's called "You Can't Run Forever" from writer-director Michelle Schumacher and starring J.K. Simmons. And if you're wondering why I keep calling this a family affair, is because guess what? J.K. and Michelle are husband and wife, and they made this movie during COVID, and it's actually a really interesting little psychological study of just A to B. They're not trying to overdo it. It's just crazy for the sake of crazy, and it's actually really, really interesting and well done to see. They did a great job with this. But I mean, I had the pleasure of talking with Michelle Schumacher about the origins of the story and getting this done. Getting her husband at scale, as it were, but also it is even more of a family affair because there's some great music in this. And we had talked with composer Joe Simmons, who just happens to be their son. So there you go. It all came around together like a family affair. But I mean, again, it's a darn good film. Check it out on VOD in North America, I do believe, but it's probably still having a limited theatrical run in certain places in the States. But enjoy You Can't Run Forever when you can. But first, enjoy our talk with Michelle and Joe, because between you and me, it's a pretty darn good one. All right. Well, obviously, I mean, first off, just thank you so much for the time today. I mean, congrats on the movie. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now, I mean, Michelle, I guess my first question is for you. Like, walk me through sort of the origin of wanting to tell this very simple but very, very terrifying story.
Right. Oh, good. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, COVID, right? Simple and terrifying. I mean, the lockdown and the stress that put on people and the breaking point, right? Like a pressure cooker. So my brother Randall, who produced it, and I were talking about that, and like, you know, the mental illness that seemed to be across all of the globe, really. So I got together with my writing partner Carolyn Carpenter, who I've known for decades, and we've written stuff before in the past. And we just came up with this thriller idea, but with like themes that we care about, you know, family, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, things like that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I mean, was JK always a lock?
Well,
you didn't make him leave?
I'm like, honey, no,
you can't not.
I mean, when you have him as your, as your muse, it's just and I get him for really cheap. I don't have to pay.
Oh, there you go. You get it for scale. Perfect. That works out well. Absolutely. Now, I mean, I got to ask, because I love the music too, man. And it's just one of those things where it felt to me like it was one of those things where it was very conscious of using space and sort of masking in with sort of the sounds of the forest and sort of knowing when there to be music, when not to be music. Can you talk to me a little bit about not just sort of developing the music, but I mean, I guess maybe knowing where not to use it at the same time? Because I mean, in and of itself, that's an art form as well.
100%. I really appreciate that question actually, because that was one of the things that I struggled with the most in my own creative music. Just that I've been writing music for most of my life, and that was one of the things that I really struggled with. I love writing electronic music. I love writing all kinds of music, but electronic music specifically. And one of the problems that I found in my own creative work was that I just wanted to have a bunch of sounds happening all the time. Like, listen to this, listen to this, listen to this. And
Right.
I realized that some of the music that I enjoyed listening to the most had amazing use of space, you know? Like that's one of the coolest things in music is like not having any music, you know? So yeah, one, I really appreciate that question because that was something that I guess subconsciously I just tried to, you know, enact more space into it. And part of that was it kind of started in the location scouting that we all did together in Montana because I accompanied all of like the who was it, the DP and the key grip and yeah, all the folks that were,
Gaffer,
the gaffers and
Justin Long
the
and
PAs
Jordan
and stuff.
Crockett and
Yeah.
Pete Villani.
And I recorded a lot of like sounds in the forest and stuff there so that I can use that sort of, you know, music concrete style, like No Country for Old Men style, like,
Right.
you know, use some found sounds in the score itself. And yeah, it kind of, I guess, helped me shape the sound and shape the energy for a lot of the themes, a lot of the characters, and a lot of the overall sounds of, yeah, like when you're in the woods and when you're not in the woods and stuff like that. Yeah.
For sure. No, absolutely. No, I mean, I'm curious on both your perspectives on this because I mean, you laughed a little bit when, like earlier, when I called this a simple story, and because I meant that very much as a compliment.
Oh no, yeah,
It's one of those things where it's the simple ideas that seem to be the most terrifying. Like if a movie like this had been sort of overtly layered with like maybe too much exposition, it would have played very differently. Like how important was it for you to really boil it down to not just boil it down to brass tacks, but really to sort of give it sort of that straight line feel? Because I mean, like again, if we had had a few too many offshoots, it would have just gone off the rails.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. No, I laughed because that it is. It's a simple story and it's scary because you know that can happen. It's one idea of somebody kind of losing it and going on a spree killing is what is, and that's basically what it is. That's basically what the movie is about, which is simple. But the idea, you know, of kind of how he's damaged before the movie starts, right? You know, and how Miranda, the cat and mouse thing going on, how she's damaged before the movie starts. That's what I find interesting. You know, it's a simple story of this cat and mouse thing, but then you kind of slowly find out, you know, about both of them and why the isolation, which was the sort of COVID inspiration, right? Like we all felt isolated, right? And we all felt kind of trapped, but they're trapped and isolated in this vast woods, which is simple. It's a simple location, and it's a simple story, but with I think it percolates, and then you know you kind of find out more and more and more and more until the very end.
Now I'm curious, how did the nature of it all affect you guys? Because I mean, obviously on one end, I mean, there's COVID, there's protocols, there's stuff you have to go through, but
Oh
at the same
yeah.
time, you're outdoors, you're dealing with the elements. I can imagine you kind of like you were almost having to walk a tightrope of like a razor blade to be sort of fit all the necessary COVID requirements, but also having to deal with sort of the elements that you're dealing with, sort of just being in nature.
Yeah, it was crazy. My brother produced it all by himself, and he had to deal with the COVID protocols. We still had to do it, even though we were out in the middle, excuse me, in the middle of the woods. Still had to do all the testing, still had to do everything, and could have been shut down. We were a tiny, tiny budget. If we'd have been shut down even for, you know, a couple of days, that would have killed the movie. But the outdoor elements, actually, there were animals. There was a bear on set that wandered on set one day in the woods. You know, our security had to take care of that. You know, I was like, don't hurt the bear, but get him off the set. You know, I don't know how they did it, but they kind of shoot him off. We had a moose nearby. We had a family of snakes, and generators go out at night, and it's freezing in Montana, in Missoula, in the middle of the night in September. I mean, who knew? You know, I'm like, September, it can't be that bad.
Yeah.
You know, it was freezing. But yeah, it was a lot to deal with. But fortunately, a lot of that my brother had to deal with as producer.
No, I mean obviously the cinema it was shot great. I mean, it looks like $1 million. I mean, can you attribute something like that to just having the space to work, especially because I mean, again, COVID, outside the elements.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a beautiful location. We use the ARRI and Master Prime lenses, which helps. And my DP Pete Villani and Steadicam operator Brian Swanson were, just great. And I did do storyboards ahead of time, and I had some conversations with J. Todd Anderson, who did the Coen Brothers. He does all their storyboards, so he did, No Country for Old Men. But we had some just talks about visualization and things like that. So there was a lot of work ahead of time, but yeah, you're in the middle of woods. It's beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful there.
No, I mean for both of you, and I mean this really to me is a perfect example of one of the old idioms of life of just sort of keeping it simple, stupid. And I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean, and that's so true of storytelling as well. And I mean, from both your perspectives, what is it about sort of the freedom of, I guess, not overdoing something? Because I mean, again, in this day and age, with the amount of stuff that goes on and stories that are being told with, universes and this, that, or the other, it's almost feels refreshing to have a very literal straight line of a story.
You want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, this was the first project that I worked on that was a feature that I was the main composer for. So I don't really have much experience as far as, like working on stuff that has had a bunch of different things going on at once, and I have to worry about like, D, E, F, and G plots all the time and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it kind of, I guess for me personally, boiled down to like, I had a couple different themes for the main characters, and I had a couple different soundscapes for different places. Like I had a basic vibe that I was going for the woods, and one for like the sheriff station, and one for the house. And those were kind of the main places and then the whole, without getting too much spoilery, like some Wade stuff that happened, like backstory stuff was a little different. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of I forgot your question actually. What was your question?
No, just in terms of it feels like having sort of that straight line to be able to tell a story could be very freeing because
it was and I don't really again, my frame of reference is kind of minimal. I don't have a huge data set, as far as experience goes, but I did kind of feel that, I think, subconsciously. Like it wasn't really overwhelming at any point, really. Like it kind of just like, pre-production helped a lot because like she would send me dailies, like sometimes daily, like actual dailies, and sometimes like once a week, like, okay, like here's like a cut of what the scene will look like, stuff like that. And I got a feel for a lot of this stuff very early on, which was sick because then I could kind of just hit the ground running as far as like composition wise, I already had the whole soundscape. So now it's just kind of like, all right, what do I want to do? And does this work? And then we would work, a lot and go back and forth and until it was what we wanted it to be. But yeah, the workflow as well is pretty straightforward too. So yeah.
Does that change the job for you though? Because I mean, I can imagine Joe as a composer. I mean, there'll be times where it's like, okay, picture lock, here you go, give me something. You got 3 weeks. Here you were on from sort of day one.
Right. It was. I think the open-endedness of that was. I mean, probably two sides of the same coin, like a blessing and a curse. One was that I got a head start as far as like getting the sounds, because like once the sounds are there, then it's kind of just like, at least for this project specifically for me, like once the sounds were there, then it's kind of just how do you use them effectively, and yeah, when we were working together, like it was, I mean, we had a deadline, of course, but there was a lot of like, hey man, we just trying to fucking do the best thing that we can do. So it doesn't really, we had, I think, a few months of like actual writing and editing and stuff. And then we went through a few different cuts and stuff. And yeah, that was interesting too, because that was one of the first times that I had like an intimate, like, back and forth with a director, my mom, which was very, it was cool because a lot of times I've been doing like short films, which is like kind of one-offs, whatever, like, oh, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, send it back, and then that's it. And yeah, this was an interesting one that kind of ebbed and flowed, but it was always kind of moving forward steadily, you know?
No, I mean, just put a bow on this because I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. But this is one of those movies that, a few minutes in, you shift from the normal part of your seat to the edge of it, and you're there basically the entire time.
Bless you.
Yeah.
What is it about? What is it about those kind of movies that are so primal for us as audiences, just that we get lost in, from your perspective?
Right? Well, for me, it's like, because that could happen. It's terrifying. I mean,
Yeah,
and sadly, that has happened, that kind of just
yeah,
crazy. But honestly, music, you turn down the sound on a thriller and you're like, oh, okay, always walking up on, always behind it. But the music, I mean, there's some stuff that we'd put together, but there's no music on it yet, and I'm like, oh God, is this gonna work? Is this scary? Is this? And then Joe would send me his music and I'd lay it down. I'm like, oh, thank you. Because a thriller really only works if the music works. And I think his music just nailed it. The opening sequence, Wade on his motorcycle, goes to the gas station. That whole opening sequence terrified me because we had a short day that day, and for technical problem reasons. And I thought, God, is this going to work? And he sent me the music, and I was like, boom! I just knew. I'm like,
That was one of the first things that I did too. That I was like that first scene kind of hit me. I was like, oh shit! Like,
yeah, I was like, damn! I was like,
one,
okay,
dude.
this is gonna work.
That was a
This is
fun
gonna
one. I
work.
like that one. Yeah.
but you know what, man? Both of you, it's the marriage of the two. Because I mean, I think about that one scene just with Isabel sitting on the rock taking a break, and then all of a sudden, just smoothly in that frame comes JK, and I just lost my mind. It's
Oh,
so
good.
well done.
Oh, good. Thank you. Because
Yeah.
that was another one that I'm like, is that gonna work? I'm like, I didn't do any fancy here or there. I'm like, because that's how it happened. Thank you for letting me know that does work.
Honestly, the less fancier, the better. That's why this works, man. It's just
Yeah.
straightforward and it's beautiful, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, both of you, just congrats on the work. I can't wait
Thank
for more people to see it. And just again, thank you so much for the time
Oh,
today.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you so
Right.
much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye,
very
guys.
cool.
Have a good one.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.